I remember the exact moment I started to worry, like really worry. Not just that mama's sixth sense that buzzes when your kid's acting off, but the kind that grabs you by the gut and won't let go. It was one of those golden late afternoons in spring, sun slanting through the kitchen window just right, making everything look softer than it really was. I was washing dishes, humming something from the radio, when my son walked in and tossed a wad of bills on the counter like it was a pack of gum. "Got my paycheck," he said, and kissed me on the cheek. I blinked. "From where?" I asked, drying my hands on a dish towel, heart starting to kick up just a little. "Just a gig," he mumbled, heading to his room. A gig. That was the hook. That's how it started. And honey, if I had known where that thread would pull me, I might have thrown that money back in his face and locked every door in the house. He was always a good kid, my Nathan. Smart, quiet, a little too independent for my liking. The kind who never needed much, never got into trouble, not the kind of trouble that made you lose sleep anyway. Sure, he skipped a few classes in high school and got a speeding ticket once, but he wasn't that kind of boy. Not a boy you ever imagined would have a shadow life. He started coming home with new shoes. Expensive ones. Then a gold chain. Then a phone that I'm pretty sure cost more than my monthly mortgage. At first I figured he got a second job, maybe some online hustle. Lord knows kids these days find money in the strangest ways. Selling sneakers or streaming or whatever the heck they do. But when I asked, he always kept it vague. "It's complicated," he'd say. "Just helping someone out." Then he stopped answering questions at all. I tried to let it go. I really did. You want to believe your child is telling the truth, even when everything in you is screaming they're not. But then there were the phone calls. Quick ones in the garage. Weird numbers. He started locking his bedroom door, and the smell of smoke, something sharp, chemical, started clinging to his clothes. I asked once, and he laughed. "Relax, Mom. It's just weed." I grounded him, yes, at 19, and yes, it was pointless. He laughed it off, disappeared for 3 days, came back with even more money in that backpack of his. One night I couldn't sleep, so I crept down the hallway. His bedroom door was cracked open, and I heard him talking. Not loudly, but not whispering either. Confident. Like he was someone else. Someone older, harder. He was saying things like, "The drop went smooth," and "Tell Rico we're square." I nearly dropped to my knees right there. Now, I'm not naive. I've seen enough TV and been around enough people to know what that meant. Drop. Rico. My son wasn't working a part-time gig at AutoZone, that's for sure. But when I confronted him the next morning over cold coffee and burnt toast, he just stared at me with those eyes I used to kiss goodnight and said, "It's none of your business, Mom." None of my business. The boy I gave my life to, the one I stayed up nights with during fevers and nightmares, the one I taught to tie his shoes and say please and thank you, now had secrets darker than I could understand. And I knew, something terrible was waiting on the horizon. That's when I started watching, checking his drawers when he left, looking through his trash. I hated myself for it. Felt like a spy in my own house. But when you're a mother and your instincts are screaming, you stop worrying about being polite. And that's how I found it. A box, tucked behind the old board games in the hall closet. Inside, there were tiny plastic baggies, some with white powder, some with pills, rolls of cash rubber banded tight, a burner phone, a gun. I sat on the floor with that box in my lap and my soul just shattered. My baby, my boy, a drug dealer. I remember whispering his name just once. Nathan. And I swear, for a split second, I thought I heard the little boy version of him answer. The one with the gap-toothed smile and sticky fingers. But no, that boy was long gone. I didn't sleep that night. Didn't eat. Just paced the living room with a blanket over my shoulders like it could protect me from this new truth. I wanted to scream, to call the police, to throw the box at his feet and demand he explain every last piece of it. But I didn't. I waited, because I had to know how deep this went. And more than anything, I needed to believe there was still a way to pull him back, even if it meant losing everything. It's funny how fast everything can flip. One minute you're making dinner, thinking maybe it was all a misunderstanding, maybe your imagination ran wild, and the next, you're staring at your son through a veil of fear. I didn't confront Nathan right away. I couldn't. I kept walking past his door, pausing, listening. At night I lay in bed, hearing the creak of the floorboards, the quiet buzz of his burner phone vibrating against the nightstand. I kept telling myself, tomorrow I'll say something. But I didn't. Because every time I looked at him, I saw flashes of both boys, the child I raised and this stranger I didn't recognize. And I didn't know which one I'd be speaking to. I started gathering little pieces. I'd wait till he left, then I'd dig. His jeans pockets, his jacket lining, his car glove box. There were receipts from gas stations 2 towns over, text messages on his main phone that ended mid-conversation, like someone had deleted half the story. I found a notebook in his backpack, tucked between a college brochure and a protein bar, pages filled with names, numbers, symbols. Codes, maybe. Prices. It chilled me to the bone. But still, I said nothing. Instead, I went about our days like we were normal. Like I wasn't unraveling inside. Then came the night I followed him. He left just after 9 p.m. Told me he was going to the gym. No bag, no towel, just that same backpack he never let out of his sight. I waited 5 minutes, threw on a hoodie, and slipped out the back door. My car was almost out of gas, but I didn't care. I kept my headlights low and followed him all the way past town, out where the streetlights thin and the trees crowd close. He pulled into a gas station, parked near the dumpsters, and just sat there. I parked 2 rows back, heart pounding so hard I thought it'd shake the steering wheel. A few minutes later, another car pulled in. Some low-slung sports car with tinted windows and a busted headlight. A guy got out, leaned into Nathan's window, and they talked for maybe 30 seconds. Then Nathan handed him something. The guy walked away with a bounce in his step, and Nathan drove off like nothing happened. I followed him home. I didn't sleep. I sat in my kitchen with every light on, hands wrapped around a mug I never drank from. That's when I knew. No more pretending. My son was dealing drugs. I waited until Sunday morning. He came into the kitchen yawning, rubbing his eyes. "Smells like bacon," he said, voice thick with sleep. I looked him straight in the eye. "We need to talk." He froze. Not scared, no. Nathan never showed fear. But something in him tightened, like a wire pulled taut. About what? I opened the drawer and took out the little plastic baggie I'd stashed from the box. Held it up like a dirty secret. His eyes flicked from the bag to my face. "Where'd you get that?" "In this house," I said, keeping my voice steady. "In your closet." He didn't answer, just stared. And I saw it then, the moment he realized he was cornered. That there was no lie clean enough to wipe this away. "Mom, it's not what you think. It's not drugs." Silence. "I'm not hurting anybody," he said finally. "It's just business." "Business?" I whispered. "Nathan, you're selling poison. You're letting people put this in their bodies. You could go to prison. You could die." His mouth twisted. "People want it anyway. If it's not me, it's someone else." My heart cracked clean in 2. I reached for him, but he backed away. We didn't talk for days after that. I cried in the shower, cried folding laundry, cried chopping onions that didn't need chopping. I thought maybe he'd quit. Maybe I'd scared him straight. But I was wrong. He got bolder. Started coming home with more cash. Left his car parked 2 blocks down, like he thought I wouldn't notice. Took calls right outside the back door. And then came the night I found the gun. It was in a shoebox under his bed. A pistol. Cold, black, real. My knees buckled when I picked it up. That's when the panic set in, not just fear, but terror. Because suddenly this wasn't just about some pills and powder. My son had a weapon, which meant he was in deep. Which meant other people had weapons too. I sat on his bed, gun in my lap, and I didn't know whether to scream, pray, or call the police. When he got home that night, I didn't bother hiding it. He walked into his room and saw me sitting there, holding it. His face went white. "Mom," he said quietly, "put it down." I didn't. I looked up at him, tears streaming down my face. What are you doing? I said, my voice trembling. What are you trying to become? He came toward me slow, like I was some wounded animal he didn't want to spook. It's just protection, he said. I don't use it. I swear. You shouldn't need protection, I said. Not if you were doing something right. He took the gun from my hands, gently. I let him. Then I stood up and looked him dead in the eyes. Either you stop this, or I'll stop it for you. Are you threatening me? I'm your mother, I said. I'm not going to bury my child. I don't care if it costs me everything. I will save you. He looked at me then like I was the enemy. Like I was the one ruining everything. And that's when I knew. This wasn't just some phase. This was real. And the worst part? He wasn't scared. Not of prison. Not of dying. Not even of me. If you've ever watched your child slip through your fingers and vanish into a life you barely recognize, then you understand the kind of helplessness I lived with. It clings to you. It wakes you up at 3 a.m. and steals your breath. It's standing in your own house, hearing your son talk to people whose names he won't say, using words you pray you never understand. After I found the gun, after I gave him that ultimatum, things changed, but not in the way I hoped. He didn't quit. He just got quieter, colder. It was like he tucked his real self away, deep down somewhere, and only brought out the version of himself that could lie to my face and not flinch. And I started seeing people I didn't recognize. Guys with neck tattoos and dead eyes showing up at the house, leaning against my front porch railing like they owned it. Women in tiny outfits and big cars idling outside the driveway. They never stayed long. A knock, a handoff, and gone. I didn't even know my own address anymore. I was living in a trap house dressed like a suburban ranch. One afternoon, a man came to the door. I answered it because I didn't know any better yet. He was tall, maybe late 30s, with sharp cheekbones and a voice that didn't match his smile. He asked if Nathan was home. I said no, and something about the way he looked past me made my stomach twist. You must be his mom, he said, like it was a compliment. He's a good kid. Smart. I don't know who you are, I said, my hands shaking. He smiled wider, but it didn't reach his eyes. Friend of a friend. That was the last time I opened the door without looking through the peephole. Later that night, I told Nathan about the man. He didn't even blink. Just said, yeah, he's cool. Don't worry about him. Don't worry. I snapped. People like that don't come around for a friendly visit. He just stared at the TV. Mom, it's business. You stay out of it, it stays clean. Clean. That word hit me like a slap. Nathan, you're dealing drugs out of my house. You brought a gun into my home. There is nothing clean about this. He finally looked at me, and what I saw in his face scared me more than the gun had. Resentment. Like I was the problem. Like my worry was an inconvenience to him. I started sleeping with my phone on my chest. I had 911 on speed dial. I kept a list of names, nicknames mostly, scratched into a notebook. Rico, Tone, Mouse. Half of them sounded like made-up movie villains, but I didn't care. I was gathering pieces, trying to build a picture of the world my son was stepping deeper into. And then came the night of the knock. Not a polite knock. A pounding. I was in the kitchen. It was past midnight. Nathan wasn't home. I froze. Whoever it was wasn't patient. The door rattled in its frame. I crept to the hallway and peeked through the peephole. 3 men. Big. All in black. I didn't open the door. They pounded again. Then one leaned in close and said loud enough for me to hear, "Tell your boy to answer his F*******ing phone." Then they left. No explanation. No note. Just a silence so deep I couldn't breathe. Nathan got home around 2 in the morning. I was sitting on the couch. Lights off. Just me and my rage. He looked surprised to see me. You need to go to the police, I said. My voice was steady, but only because I'd rehearsed it 100 times in my head. He laughed. Actually laughed. Do you think I can just walk in there and say, "Hey, I changed my mind"? It doesn't work like that. Then I will, I said. I'll turn you in. Right now. The room went so quiet you could hear the refrigerator hum. He stared at me, jaw clenched. You'd ruin your own son's life? I stood up, shaking all over. You already ruined it. Then he said the thing that broke me. They'd kill me. It was a whisper. A throwaway line. But it landed in me like a knife. They who? I asked. He didn't answer. Just walked past me into his room and closed the door. That night, I cried on the bathroom floor like I hadn't since my mother died. The ugly kind of crying. The kind where you bite a towel to keep from screaming. Because now it wasn't about rehab or second chances or lectures. It wasn't about parenting anymore. It was survival. I was a mother with a choice: keep his secret and hope he somehow clawed his way out, or bring hell down on both of us. And it was the loneliest I have ever felt in my life. 2 days later, I followed him again. I shouldn't have. I knew it was stupid, but I needed to see it for myself. This time he met with 3 people in a parking lot behind an abandoned strip mall. They handed him something, he handed them something. And then, God help me, they all looked over and saw me sitting in my car. Nathan's face went pale. He ran over and pounded on my window. "What are you doing?" he shouted. "Are you crazy?" I unlocked the door. "Get in," I said. He got in, breath coming fast, angry but scared too. "You have no idea who those guys are." "No," I said, "but I know who you are. Or at least who you used to be." He didn't answer. I reached over, touched his arm. "Nathan, I want to help. But you've got to let me." He shook his head. "It's too late." And he said it like he believed it. Like he was already gone. It's hard to explain what it feels like to love someone who's disappearing right in front of you. To live under the same roof and still feel like you're watching them through a window with the glass shut tight. That's what Nathan became, my own son, sealed off behind this wall I couldn't climb, getting pulled deeper and deeper into something I couldn't reach. Or stop. After that night in the car, the night he said it was too late, I stopped pretending. I started preparing. The next morning, I woke up before sunrise. I couldn't sleep anymore. I made coffee and stared out the kitchen window, watching the sky go from bruised black to washed out blue. And I made a decision. If Nathan wouldn't save himself, I'd do it for him. That meant getting smart. Careful. Quiet. I started writing everything down. Who he saw, what time he left, what time he came back. License plate numbers. I even put a little camera in the front window, a cheap one I ordered online. And I started asking around, discreetly, in town. There's always somebody who knows somebody. That's when I heard the name for the first time, El Mago. They said he wasn't just some drug dealer, he ran the show around here. Small-time guys like Nathan? They were pawns. He was the king. And he didn't let pawns walk away. The more I heard, the sicker I felt. This wasn't just some bad decision. My boy had gotten himself tangled in something real. Dangerous. And I was terrified. One night, Nathan didn't come home. No text. No call. Nothing. Midnight came and went. At 2 in the morning, I called his phone, straight to voicemail. I called 3 more times. Nothing. I paced the house like a caged animal, checking the windows every 5 minutes, half expecting headlights in the driveway, half dreading they'd belong to someone else. By 4 a.m., I was shaking. So I did something I hadn't done in years. I prayed. Not politely either. Not the kind of prayer you hear in church with folded hands and soft voices. No, this was a mother's howl, half desperate, half furious. God, if you're listening, you better bring my son back to me. Do you hear me? Bring him back. He walked through the door at 7:13 a.m. His shirt was ripped, knuckles scraped, a bruise blooming across his jaw like a thundercloud. He smelled like sweat, smoke, and something darker, something metallic, sharp. I didn't even ask what happened. I just wrapped my arms around him and held on. He didn't hug me back, but he let me hold him. That was enough. Go shower, I whispered. I'll make you some eggs. He nodded, eyes empty. A ghost of my son. Later that morning, I went into his room while he was sleeping, curled up on his side like a little boy again. I sat there, watching his chest rise and fall, remembering how I used to sneak in just like this when he was a baby, terrified he'd stop breathing in the night. Funny how those fears never really leave you. They just grow teeth. I found his phone under the pillow. It wasn't locked. He must have been too tired to bother. And that's when I saw it. A string of messages. From someone named M. You handled yourself well. Payment will be higher next time. Keep quiet. My hands were sweating so bad I could barely hold the phone. Payment. Next time. Keep quiet. Whatever happened last night wasn't just a scuffle or a drop gone bad. He had been tested. And apparently, he'd passed. I didn't tell him I saw the messages. But that day, I made another decision. I found a contact at the local police department. Someone I knew through church years ago. His name was Joel, and he'd gone from small-town officer to narcotics task force over the last few years. He remembered me. Called me Missy, like he used to when Nathan was still in middle school and I helped run the fall bake sale. I told him everything. Well, almost everything. I left out the gun, the camera, the messages. I wanted his help, not a raid. Joel didn't say much at first, just listened. Then he said something that chilled me more than anything I'd heard yet. If your son's working for who I think he is, this goes way past local charges. He might already be in federal sights. And Missy, those people don't let you go. Not without a price. I asked him what kind of price. He didn't answer. When I got home that night, Nathan was at the kitchen table, smoking a cigarette out the back window. Joel called me, he said, without looking up. I froze. What? He turned slowly, ash falling onto his shirt. He said you talked to him. Told him everything. I felt my heart drop straight to the floor. I was trying to help. He stood up so fast the chair screeched across the tile. You have no idea what you've done. I'm your mother, I cried. I'm trying to save you. Save me. He was shouting now. You think this is some after-school special? This is real life, Mom. You just painted a target on my back. I had to do something, I said, sobbing now. You're not safe. You're not. I was safe, he snapped. You just made it worse. He walked out. Didn't take his phone. Didn't take his jacket. Just walked into the night. I waited by the window until the sun came up. He didn't come back. And this time, I wasn't sure he ever would. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. Every sound outside made me flinch. Every hour that passed without Nathan walking back through that door felt like a fresh cut. Around 3 in the morning, I started checking the hospital websites. Then the jails. Then the morgue. I didn't tell anyone. Not my sister. Not my neighbor Gloria. Not even my old friend Teresa, who I call about everything from my back pain to the birds on my porch. This wasn't gossip. This was something darker. This was my son, my baby, being swallowed up by something that could kill him. I sat in the kitchen, phone in hand, just waiting. For a call. For a knock. For anything. And then, sometime after dawn, the door creaked open. Nathan stood there, covered in sweat, dirt on his jeans, a scratch across his neck that looked like it came from a barbed fence or worse. I need to get out, he said, voice hoarse. Tonight. He wouldn't tell me where he'd been. Wouldn't tell me what happened. Just that he needed a bus ticket. Cash. Clothes. No credit cards, he said. No phones. Nothing traceable. I stared at him. Nathan, what did you do? He looked at me, eyes hollow. I did what I had to. That was all I got. I gave him the money. I packed him a bag. I wrote my phone number on a piece of paper and tucked it in his jacket, even though he already knew it by heart. I don't care where you go, I said, tears running down my face. But you call me. You let me know you're breathing. He nodded. Didn't say goodbye. Just left. The house felt like a graveyard after he was gone. Quiet. Still. Heavy with something I couldn't name. I sat at the table for hours. My coffee went cold. The sun rose and fell, and still no call. That night, I did something I swore I wouldn't do. I opened his closet. It was mostly empty. He took what he needed. But on the top shelf, there was an envelope. Inside, photos. Of people I didn't know. Some of them were circled. One had a big red X over it. My hands went cold. In the corner of the envelope, in his handwriting, was a single word, insurance. I didn't understand it all, not then. But I understood enough. Nathan hadn't just been selling. He'd been collecting information. Names. Routes. Maybe for leverage. Maybe for money. Maybe just to stay alive. Whatever it was dangerous. And it meant he hadn't left the game. He'd just changed positions. The next day, I got a call. It was Joel. "I need you to come in," he said. "There's been movement." When I got to the station, they didn't take me into an office. They took me into a room with a screen. And on that screen was a security camera feed. Blurry, black and white, time-stamped 2:17 a.m. A bus station. And there, in the corner, stood Nathan. Backpack over one shoulder. Looking over his shoulder like he was waiting for something or someone. Then two men appeared. One tall, one stocky. They flanked him, real casual-like. Nathan didn't run. Didn't fight. He just nodded. And then they walked off screen together. Joel paused the video. "That was 3 nights ago," he said. "We haven't seen him since." I stared at the screen, willing Nathan to turn around. To run back into frame. To wave. Anything. But the screen stayed frozen. Grainy. Still. Like he'd vanished. I went home that night in a fog. I opened every window in the house. Let the cold air rush through, hoping it would carry some kind of answer with it. I cleaned his room. Changed the sheets. Dusted the shelves. I kept thinking maybe if I made it feel like home again, he'd come back. And then I heard it. A knock. Not on the door. On the window. My heart nearly stopped. I turned, slowly, and there he was, Nathan. Standing in the dark. Hair wet from rain. Eyes wide and wild. I ran to the door, yanked it open, pulled him inside before he could speak. He collapsed into my arms. And whispered, "I screwed up, Mom." I screwed up bad. I got him into bed. He hadn't slept in days. Barely ate. He told me bits and pieces, how the guys at the station weren't picking him up. How they were delivering him. How he'd been working as an informant for months. How he got in too deep, tried to walk away, and now there were whispers. About a target. About a leak. And how he thought they knew it was him. That night, I sat at the foot of his bed with the lights off, watching the hallway, the windows, the front yard. I held the old baseball bat we kept for emergencies. And I prayed again. Not for forgiveness. Not for answers. But for time. Just give me more time, I begged. To fix this. To find a way out. To save him. Because now I knew. This wasn't over. It was only beginning. Nathan slept for 17 hours straight. I sat outside his door the entire time, half afraid he'd disappear if I looked away for a second. Every creak in the house made my skin crawl. Every sound outside, passing cars, the neighbor's dog barking, the mail slot clinking, sent my nerves into a tailspin. It felt like we were in a bunker, waiting for the bomb to drop. Only I had no idea where the blast would come from. When he finally woke up, he looked like someone who'd aged 10 years. Dark circles under his eyes. Stubble that made him look too old, and yet not old enough to carry what he was carrying. He sat at the kitchen table, silent while I made toast. I slid the plate in front of him and sat down across from him, hands wrapped around my lukewarm coffee like it was the only solid thing left in the world. "Tell me everything," I said. He didn't speak right away, just stared at the toast like it held the answers. Then he began. He told me about El Mago. Real name unknown. Nobody ever saw him, at least not without going missing afterward. But his fingerprints were everywhere, in the payments, the routes, the punishments. Nathan said it started simple, drop-offs, pickups. Then it became more. He was smart, and they liked that. They gave him numbers, information, contacts to remember. Told him it was a test. And it was. Because someone had been skimming. Someone had been leaking. And they needed someone young, clean-faced, no criminal record, to get close to the right people. To listen. To report. Nathan thought he could handle it. But he wasn't the only one pretending. One of the men he was feeding information on tone figured it out. Nathan didn't say how. Maybe he slipped up. Maybe someone sold him out. But he knew. That's what the bruise on his jaw was from. That's why he vanished for 3 days. They had me tied up in a basement, he said. voice flat like he was describing the weather. Asked questions. Told me what would happen if I didn't answer right. My heart nearly stopped. What did you say? I said I was clean. Just a runner. A nobody. That I didn't know anything. I stared at him. And they believed you? I think so. He didn't sound convinced. After that, he knew he couldn't keep doing it. Couldn't work for Joel, couldn't play spy, couldn't stay in this house. He ran, went to an old friend's place near the train yards, slept on a mattress in an attic, ate peanut butter sandwiches, waited for the heat to die down. But it didn't, because El Mago doesn't forget. And he doesn't forgive. I saw Rico 2 days ago, Nathan said. He was watching the house. I froze. What? He didn't come up. Just parked across the street. Watched. Then left. He looked me in the eye. They know, Mom. They know I talked. And now, he trailed off. And I understood. Now I was a loose end, too. I called Joel. Told him what happened. He cursed under his breath. Said he'd meet us somewhere safe. A motel 3 towns over under a fake name. Said they could place Nathan into witness protection, maybe even fast-track it if he could testify. But we'd have to move quickly. He gave me an hour. I hung up, looked at my son. Pack. Now. We grabbed what we could. Just a couple bags, some clothes, cash from my coffee tin, a few framed photos I couldn't bear to leave behind. I locked the house, walked through every room one last time, saying goodbye with my eyes. It felt like a funeral. Like we were leaving behind more than just furniture. We drove with the headlights off for the first mile. My hands gripped the wheel so tight, I thought my fingers might snap. The motel was one of those no-frills roadside places. Yellowed curtains, buzzing light bulbs, carpet that felt like it had stories to tell. Joel was waiting in room 9. He looked tired, older than I remembered. Said he'd put in the call. That people were coming. That we'd be okay. Then he pulled me aside and said something I'll never forget. You need to prepare yourself, Missy. If they know Nathan flipped and they know where you live, it's not just about keeping him alive. It's about you too. He wasn't sugarcoating. He was saying goodbye. That night, I sat on the edge of the motel bed, watching Nathan sleep again. He looked so peaceful, mouth slightly open, arms curled under his pillow. Like a boy again. Like the kid who used to fall asleep in the back seat after baseball practice, dusty and sunburned and happy. I reached out and brushed his hair back like I used to. And I whispered, I'm not letting them take you. I don't care what it costs. Because there's something people don't understand about mothers. We're not soft. We're not weak. We're fire wrapped in skin. And if someone comes for our children, we burn the whole damn forest down. Nathan slept for 17 hours straight. I sat outside his door the entire time, half afraid he'd disappear if I looked away for a second. Every creak in the house made my skin crawl. Every sound outside, passing cars, the neighbor's dog barking, the mail slot clinking, sent my nerves into a tailspin. It felt like we were in a bunker, waiting for the bomb to drop. Only I had no idea where the blast would come from. When he finally woke up, he looked like someone who'd aged 10 years. Dark circles under his eyes. Stubble that made him look too old, and yet not old enough to carry what he was carrying. He sat at the kitchen table, silent while I made toast. I slid the plate in front of him and sat down across from him, hands wrapped around my lukewarm coffee like it was the only solid thing left in the world. Tell me everything, I said. He didn't speak right away. Just stared at the toast like it held the answers. Then he began. He told me about El Mago. Real name unknown. Nobody ever saw him, at least not without going missing afterward. But his fingerprints were everywhere, in the payments, the routes, the punishments. Nathan said it started simple, drop-offs, pickups. Then it became more. He was smart, and they liked that. They gave him numbers, information, contacts to remember. Told him it was a test. And it was. Because someone had been skimming. Someone had been leaking. And they needed someone young, clean-faced, no criminal record, to get close to the right people. To listen. To report. Nathan thought he could handle it. But he wasn't the only one pretending. One of the men he was feeding information on tone figured it out. Nathan didn't say how. Maybe he slipped up. Maybe someone sold him out. But he knew. That's what the bruise on his jaw was from. That's why he vanished for 3 days. They had me tied up in a basement, he said, voice flat like he was describing the weather. Asked questions. Told me what would happen if I didn't answer right. My heart nearly stopped. What did you say? I said I was clean. Just a runner. A nobody. That I didn't know anything. I stared at him. And they believed you? I think so. He didn't sound convinced. After that, he knew he couldn't keep doing it. Couldn't work for Joel, couldn't play spy, couldn't stay in this house. He ran. Went to an old friend's place near the train yards. Slept on a mattress in an attic. Ate peanut butter sandwiches. Waited for the heat to die down. But it didn't. Because El Mago doesn't forget. And he doesn't forgive. I saw Rico 2 days ago, Nathan said. He was watching the house. I froze. What? He didn't come up. Just parked across the street. Watched. Then left. He looked me in the eye. They know, Mom. They know I talked. And now, he trailed off. And I understood. Now I was a loose end, too. I called Joel. Told him what happened. He cursed under his breath. Said he'd meet us somewhere safe. A motel 3 towns over under a fake name. Said they could place Nathan into witness protection, maybe even fast-track it if he could testify. But we'd have to move quickly. He gave me an hour. I hung up. Looked at my son. Pack. Now. We grabbed what we could. Just a couple bags, some clothes, cash from my coffee tin, a few framed photos I couldn't bear to leave behind. I locked the house, walked through every room one last time, saying goodbye with my eyes. It felt like a funeral. Like we were leaving behind more than just furniture. We drove with the headlights off for the first mile. My hands gripped the wheel so tight, I thought my fingers might snap. The motel was one of those no-frills roadside places. Yellowed curtains. Buzzing light bulbs. Carpet that felt like it had stories to tell. Joel was waiting in room 9. He looked tired, older than I remembered. Said he'd put in the call. That people were coming. That we'd be okay. Then he pulled me aside and said something I'll never forget. You need to prepare yourself, Missy. If they know Nathan flipped and they know where you live, it's not just about keeping him alive. It's about you too. He wasn't sugarcoating. He was saying goodbye. That night, I sat on the edge of the motel bed, watching Nathan sleep again. He looked so peaceful, mouth slightly open, arms curled under his pillow. Like a boy again. Like the kid who used to fall asleep in the back seat after baseball practice, dusty and sunburned and happy. I reached out and brushed his hair back like I used to. And I whispered, I'm not letting them take you. I don't care what it costs. Because there's something people don't understand about mothers. We're not soft. We're not weak. We're fire wrapped in skin. And if someone comes for our children, we burn the whole damn forest down. They came for us at 3:42 a.m. Not with sirens or flashing lights, nothing loud or sloppy like that. No, this was quiet. Surgical. The way wolves move when they're sure of the kill. I'd been sitting up in bed, half asleep, half alert, clutching my phone and that old baseball bat like they were magic talismans. The air was thick, still, but humming with something I couldn't name. And then came the knock. Not on the door, on the window. My blood ran cold. I crawled across the motel bed like I was 17 again, heart racing, whispered Nathan's name as I reached for him. He woke up mid-breath. Sat up instantly. I nodded to the window. We both knew. Joel was in the next room. I grabbed the key and cracked the door open just wide enough to see down the breezeway. 3 men. Not police. Not feds. Rico was one of them. He saw me. He smiled. Nathan yanked the door shut. They're not here to scare us, he said. They're here to finish it. I thought I'd be paralyzed. But something came over me, something cold and clear. It was like all the fear, all the worry, all the nights I'd sat crying on the floor had been sharpening me for this. I picked up the motel phone, dialed Joel's room. Don't open your door, I whispered. They're here. He didn't ask who. Didn't say a word. Just hung up. Seconds later, I heard the lock click on the other side. Nathan and I backed into the bathroom. It was the only room with no windows. I grabbed my phone, dialed 911. My voice was steady, too steady, almost. Like I'd stepped outside my body. "There are 3 armed men at the Sunrise Motel, room 9, I told the dispatcher. They're looking to kill my son." The rest was static in my ears. All I could hear was Nathan's breathing and the soft rustle of his jacket as he reached for the one thing he hadn't let go of, the gun. I looked at it, then at him. "Don't," I whispered. "I won't use it," he said. "Unless I have to." Minutes passed, then yelling, then footsteps running past the door. Joel's voice, firm, shouting something I couldn't make out. Then silence. And finally, the wail of sirens splitting the dark like a knife. It was over in under 5 minutes. One man was arrested outside the front office, crouched behind a dumpster. One was tackled in the parking lot trying to run. Rico? Gone. Vanished into the trees behind the motel, swallowed up by the night. We spent the next 10 hours in an unmarked building outside town. Joel was there. So were 2 federal agents who looked like they hadn't slept in a week. They asked questions. Nathan answered. I watched him as he spoke, slow, careful, measured. No stammer, no fear. He was done lying, done hiding, and maybe, just maybe, done running. The program moved fast after that. Witness protection, new names, new identities. A town I'd never heard of in a state I'd only driven through once. We had to say goodbye to everything in under 72 hours. My house, my job, my sister, my Sunday coffee crew, Gloria and her cinnamon rolls. Even Teresa, who cried so hard on the phone I almost broke. But I didn't, because I had made a promise. I would not bury my child. Our new house is small, but clean. 1 story, yellow shutters. The kind of place with wind chimes on the porch and daisies in the flower bed. It smells like lemon and laundry and possibility. Nathan goes by a new name now. He's working at a garage, learning to fix things with his hands. I got a part-time job at the library. No one here knows who we were. And that's a gift. Some nights, when the wind hits the house just right, I still wake up thinking I hear a knock on the window. I lie there, holding my breath, waiting. But it never comes. Because we're safe now. Not forever, not in some storybook ending kind of way, but safe enough. Enough to start over. Enough to breathe. And sometimes I look at my son when he's bent under a car hood, grease on his fingers, music in his ears, and I see the boy he was. And the man he's trying to become. And I thank God I never gave up. Because this little yellow house and this second chance, this is the line I drew in the sand. The one I fought for. The one I bled for. The one a mother draws when she says, "Not my son. Not today. Not ever."